Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AIM Employers Association, and welcome to This Week at Work.
Welcome to This Week at Work, the only show to pack workplace news, practical HR solutions, and timely insights into every 30-minute episode. It's Thursday, December 5th, episode 306. Today, your 2025 HR budget is set, but does your training plan for the year measure up? Join us and guest Matt Wideman, who's helped AIM orchestrate the training of over 30,000 employees these past 2 years, as we cover 5 key questions to help you develop a solid training plan. This show is brought to you by AIM Employers Association, live every Thursday morning, so you can regularly connect with their experts and get your legal questions addressed by Ogletree Deacons. And now, it's time for This Week at Work.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Happy to be here. Bert, I tell you what, winter is setting in, and you are looking dapper today. Look at you.
Thank you, Phil. I try to clean up every now and again.
Well, you've done a good job. You look good. Are you off on business today someplace? Or
yes, we're having our quarterly breakfast briefing here at the Ritz-Carlton in St. Louis, and I am presenting at the program today.
All right. Well, I'm sure you will do a good job. I hear you're presenting somewhere else next week.
I am. I'm presenting. I think I have an engagement at AIM to talk about Missouri's new paid sick leave law, which I know I've been getting a ton of questions about, and will be happy to present. I'm now fully up to speed on the new law, and hopefully we'll be able to answer everyone's questions.
What do they say? It's easy peasy, right? Yeah. I know it's the number one thing right now that people are asking me questions about from our Missouri-based employers, and that is, that law and all the ins and outs of it. We're going to cover it in a lot of detail, and you can learn more and join us next week if you like. We do have virtual attendance still available if you're interested in attending virtually. It will be a simulcast program, so you don't need to wear your jacket and tie.
Thank you.
But we are going to have a good program. It's approaching, 150 people already signed up for that. So it's going to be a really packed house, and I'm looking forward to it. I need to get some expertise from you versus me pulling answers out of someplace. All right. Bert, Matt. Say good morning to Matt Wideman, our product manager for training and development here.
Good morning, Matt. It's so strange. You look just like this guy I saw in a training video one time who complained about some woman sexually harassing him.
It was brutal. Yes. But yes, good to be here.
All right. So Matt's going to talk to us a little bit today. We got some opportunities to talk about training and development and developing your training plan as you're looking ahead for next year. So Matt, welcome to the conversation. All right, let's see. I should have a poll question here for today. I do. And that question is, what levels of employees are in your training plan for 2025? And we give you a whole list to select from there. So we'd like to know about your plans for 2025 and who are you planning to develop when it comes to your training efforts next year. All right, Bert, are you ready for Lawyer on the Clock?
I am ready, Phil.
Okay, Nick, pull that lever, buddy.
All right, it's time to look into what's trending in employment law. Lawyer, you're on the clock.
So, Phil, the first one I want to talk about today is we've been talking about this Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, that President Trump has set up, that's being led by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. And one of the priorities of DOGE is to require federal employees to return to the workplace. And if they don't return, they're going to lose their jobs. They have publicly announced this. Well, not to be outdone by DOGE, President Biden has given 42,000 employees, government employees of the Social Security Administration, a gift on the way out the door. And what they have done.
Well, tell me about that. How was that gift packaged?
Yeah, well, what this gift was packaged as is until the year 2029, remote work is still available to the agency's 42,000 employees who are members of the American Federation of Government Employees Union. And so this union and the government negotiated a new contract that provides for remote work through 2029 for these 42,000 government employees. So really an effort to undermine DOGE and try to get people back to work. And if people didn't want to return back to work, they were hoping to have some attrition in order to save taxpayers money.
Yeah, I have all kinds of thoughts about that. But I think what is interesting more than my opinions and thoughts on return to work, because most people that watch the program know that I'm not a big fan of working from home. However, what I find interesting is that the union was negotiating those working conditions, and that might be a little bit unique, but I bet it's not uncommon today for remote employees that are part of a bargaining unit, or for employees who can work remotely to be a part of the bargaining unit, for that to be in a contract. Have you experienced that yet in your dealing so far?
I really haven't, and that's because I just in my own practice, I don't represent call centers that are members of a union. Most of my union clients are either construction or manufacturing, which requires obviously on-site presence. Yeah, exactly. But I think if you're dealing with a unionized call center or something along those lines, that very well may be a subject of bargaining.
Yeah, that's interesting that was the topic of part of the bargaining. That's a nice gift packaged up just in time for the holidays for the Social Security workers. And we'll see how Mr. Musk manages that as he goes forward with his return to work programs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, Phil, to the next one here, I want to talk a little bit about a J.D. Vance-led effort to ban diversity, equity, and inclusion in corporate America. This effort that's making its way through Congress right now definitely is not going to pass in the next 8 weeks while Biden's in office and while the Democrats still control the Senate. But I think what it does is it gives a preview of what you're likely to see under the Trump administration. So basically, under this bill, it would bar the U.S. government from hiring corporate contractors with pro-DE&I practices and redefine DE&I as discrimination by actually amending the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So again, this bill is not going to pass in the next 8 weeks. It's probably not going to pass even when the Republicans get in charge. But it does show what the priorities will be of the administration and of the next Congress. Of course, opponents of DE&I argue that it's a form of reverse discrimination because it tips the scale in favor of historically marginalized racial, ethnic, and gender minorities. The opponents of this also point to the Supreme Court's June 2023 ruling, which limited affirmative action in college admissions. And according to Vance, he says the DE&I agenda is a destructive ideology that breeds hatred and racial division. So again, that's coming from Vance. But I think the reason I'm talking about this is that it really does show where this next administration is going on those efforts.
Yeah, that's an interesting one to keep our eye on and to watch how that unfolds. I think I agree with you. I don't see that probably getting off the ground, but it does set a tone, I think, for the next 4 years that we may see from the current administration.
Well, for sure. And it's interesting because, in order for such a bill to get passed, the Republicans will have slim majorities in both the House and in the Senate. Remember all the talk during the last 4 years about eliminating the filibuster. Well, now the Democrats have completely changed their tune on the elimination of the filibuster because that's going to be their mechanism for stopping a piece of legislation like this from going through. It'll be interesting because there are going to be efforts, and I do think we're going to see more court cases because the law, as drafted right now, as we've talked about many times on the program, says Title VII says you may not use protected characteristics in making employment-related decisions. And so I agree with what the Supreme Court, I agree with their ruling from a legal standpoint is it applied to college admissions. And I think that ultimately that legal reasoning would bear its way, would make its way through to cases regarding DE&I if DE&I efforts are challenged and they make it up to the Supreme Court. In order for race or gender to be allowed to be a characteristic that people can use to make hiring decisions, the law itself has to be changed.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. We've said it here. We've been talking about it for well over a year and a half now. If you do engage in DE&I efforts within your organization, we're not saying that that's right or wrong in any measure. What we're saying is let's make sure that we're doing it in a way that keeps you and your organization protected from unintentional
right.
consequences. So, contact Bert or myself and let us take a look at that and help you. Just make sure you're doing the right things and you keep yourself and the organizations out of trouble.
That's exactly right. It needs to be done very carefully if you're going to wade into that.
That's right.
Yep.
Anything else you got there, Bert?
Yeah, Phil, I've taken it upon myself to try to come up with something a little bit lighter for the.
Oh, this always worries me. This always worries me.
For the
Matt, this is what I deal with every week right here. I've taken it upon myself, and when people lead with that, imagine your kids come into you and go, "Hey, Dad, I've taken it upon myself." Right then, you just want to say, "Stop."
Yeah.
All right, Bert, what do you got?
All right. So there's a case pending in the North Carolina federal court where a judge denied a motion to dismiss the employee's lawsuit. This particular employee complained that she was unlawfully fired because she complained about a coworker who was walking around in his underwear and penny loafers. And she said that she was terminated suspiciously soon after she accused this employee of sexual harassment. And so, she complained that she was sexually harassed by this individual. Now, interestingly, the court got rid of the sexual harassment claim, saying it did not rise to the level of actionable sexual harassment. It was not severe or pervasive. Her being subjected to this truck driver walking around in his underwear and penny loafers on one occasion. And I agree. I think that is not necessarily severe or pervasive. But what did happen is that she claimed she was also fired suspiciously 1 month after making her complaint. The trucking company said that she was fired for having a number of driving infractions. But guess what was missing from her personnel file? Any complaints or reprimands for having driving infractions. And so the judge said, yeah, this is a question for the jury. While her complaint of sexual harassment in and of itself is not actionable, her complaint of retaliation, that she was retaliated because she made a complaint of sexual harassment, that case gets to stay. And a jury ultimately is going to get to decide whether she was fired for complaining about the sexual harassment incident. And, I think it just serves as a really good reminder, Phil, of behavior not to engage in while you're in the workplace. And, frankly, I think walking
Are you
around
saying that don't walk around in your underwear and penny loafers is the behavior not to engage in?
Probably not the best idea, because had the truck driver not been walking around in his underwear,
I got to make a note of that. One minute here, Bert. Okay, no underwear, penny loafers. Okay, go ahead.
Wait, Phil. No, please keep the underwear and the penny loafers on, but just have some other clothes on them. Then you're going to get us into an even worse.
No point made. A correction. Okay, right. Got it.
Yeah, I think just in terms of behavior not to engage in the workplace is probably one to avoid, because had the truck driver not been walking around in just his underwear and penny loafers, this whole dispute could have been avoided.
Yeah. Where I thought you were going to take that is that, this happened, I think you said like 30 days ago or so. So I'm thinking this is a Halloween costume. someone wore their underwear and penny loafers as they're, dressed as a baby or something like that for a Halloween costume, and that became a complaint. And therefore, us having Halloween costume parties, we would need to have guidelines on appropriateness. So
Yes,
I thought that's where you were going, but this is actually a little bit more serious than that. Yeah.
indeed.
Okay, very good. Anything else there,
Nope.
lawyer on the clock?
We've done enough damage for our guests today, and let's move on to Matt.
Yeah, we're getting comments already now that babies don't wear penny loafers. All right.
I didn't know
Okay,
anybody
we
still
got
wore
to
penny loafers.
say that again, Matt.
I didn't know anybody still wore penny loafers, let alone truck drivers or babies.
That's for sure. All right, Bert, thank you for that. And I guess we'll see you tonight at the holiday celebration, yeah?
I'm looking very forward to seeing all the folks at AIM and the members. Your holiday party is always a great time. And Phil, just do everyone a favor. Make sure you're wearing something other than just your underwear and penny loafers.
I'll make a note to do that. That is for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. I'm with you, Matt. I don't have penny loafers. Let's get on to a more productive conversation here. Bert always takes us down these rabbit holes, and it starts out with, I've taken it upon myself. All right. So let's take it upon yourself here, Matt. And let me do a quick introduction. Matt Wideman is our manager of training and organizational development. And he does a fantastic job for us here at AIM. Every single person that comes through our training and coaching programs, it starts with a conversation with Matt. And he's wonderful at being able to design solutions for employers and configure them in a way that makes it affordable and reasonable to match what your needs are. And today we want to just talk a little bit about how we're planning our approach for next year. And I think, Matt, you have, is it a 5-point or 5 key questions to ask? And we're going to make that PDF available to help you if you need assistance in how you're trying to outline your program. But the first thing I want to do is just ask our listeners to think about this for one moment. And if you don't know Matt loves sports. I mean, he is always following sports. So Matt, I'm using this analogy because you're our guest today. But when I think about how we train and develop managers and supervisors, I see everything from we don't, right? And we don't train or develop. We give people the job and we expect that they have the capability to do it. And that's usually comes with the highest level of risk, the highest level of failure. And you can look at those workplaces, and culturally, if Tanya Zion was on the program today, she would say, oh yeah, that becomes a big problem because we have communication issues and we have opportunities for, training and development of employees to do the job and the skill and knowledge transfer and difficult conversations, all these things that get out of control real quick when someone doesn't have the right skill. So I'm going to put it into a sports analogy. So when we think about the NFL, we have 32 teams in the NFL. And of those 32 teams, we have a quarterback on each team. And each team's success and great deal depends upon that quarterback. And if we think about that quarterback kind of as our managers or our supervisors in this capacity, every week before the game, a quarterback will engage roughly in 50, depending on the day of the week, 50 to 90 plays of actual, full speed plays, half speed plays, practicing their craft, just practicing to run their plays on Sunday with a higher level of success. And if you watch a game, you see the quarterback's on the sideline and he's staying warm and he's throwing the ball, someone's catching it, and they're practicing their form, they're practicing a quick drop, and they're doing everything they can to stay sharp. And when I think about that, I think, what do employers do to keep the sharpness of the skills of their managers or supervisors? So everything from nothing, we've done nothing at all to help these individuals be successful. Therefore, we're not helping ourselves, all the way up to organizations that you work with, Matt, that, they train and work with their people throughout the year, every year, consistently to give themselves a better chance of performance. And I just say that to kind of enlighten the thought process of people have to have repetition. People have to have practice. And we don't want what you and I talk about often, which is that dip training. I'm going to send them away for a couple of hours. We're going to give them some training and development. And now they're fixed forever, never to be thought of again for training and development. If it's not possible for a quarterback to do that, the highest skilled people in the entire world, it's surely not possible for a underskilled or new supervisor that hasn't been upskilled yet to be able to perform at a high level. So anyway, that's kind of sets the stage, Matt. Let's talk a little bit about your training and development plan, the 5 key questions. What's the first one here that we would want people to think about as we talk about the first of the 5 questions, Matt?
Sure. Yeah. So the first one is really to help identify where you have like any immediate skill gaps. And the question is, what are the biggest challenges your team is currently facing? So what challenges are they facing? What problems have you had in the last year? As you talked about earlier, what complaints have we had in terms of how things are going in the workplace? So what do we need to do to get our people up to speed as better leaders? And so that's the first one. That can include, if do you have a higher turnover because of maybe some challenges in your leadership? Have you had accelerated business growth where you're a lot busier than you were in the past? You're taking on a lot more projects. Do you have a lack of bench strength? So you have people maybe doing multiple jobs because you don't have enough qualified people that are in a leadership role. So you have somebody that's maybe filling 2 roles at once, which can cause some problems of both the inability to manage a number of people, as well as somebody that's not real happy because they're doing 2 jobs.
Matt, how often is it that when you ask that question, because I know these are questions you're asking when someone comes to you and says, hey, we'd like to invest in some training, and I know you don't go, great, let's sign you up and be here next Wednesday. You're asking this question, what problem are you trying to solve? What's the gap?
Yep.
How often is that very clear, we understand the problem, and how often is it a little ambiguous?
It's most often it's pretty ambiguous. And most of the time the answer that I get is, we've got people that have never been trained, or we've put people in leadership roles and they've never been trained on how to lead others. They were really great individual contributors. They were the best person on the line, or they were the best person that knew the equipment the best, or they were the most efficient worker and they always showed up on time and they have a great attitude. But they put them in a leadership role, and now this person is maybe not performing as well because we've handed them things that they are now responsible for that they've never been trained on.
Completely out of their skill set. It's a completely different job. Because I knew how to run the equipment well or do my job effectively before, it's just a completely different job.
Right.
It'd be like taking the quarterback and say, okay, now it's your job to be an offensive lineman.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just want to remind everyone, these 5 key points that Matt's referring to, you can download those. There's a download right by the poll question there. If you see that as a drop down, you can click on that and get the download. All right, great, Matt. So take us down. What's the next one here?
Yep. So question number 2 is, what specific skills or knowledge do you feel that your leaders need to develop to better support their teams? So are there specific skills or skill gaps that you're noticing that you need to have those leaders go through and develop? So is it communication skills? Is it, their personal productivity skills? Is it coaching and the ability to have those challenging conversations? Those are probably our top 4 of those challenges that I have the conversations on that are the true needs are those. But they could be, the ability to motivate. They don't know how to motivate effectively, and they don't understand that people are motivated by different things, and every single person has a different thing that helps them get more energized and engaged in the workplace of getting stuff done.
So when someone brings this to you and says, hey, well, we have a real problem with dealing with confrontation, difficult conversations, the job can be confrontational sometimes. This individual or the team of individuals kind of shies away from that. So do you start then adjusting the programming that you would recommend to weight a little heavier in that space? Or is it just off the box? Is it right off the shelf?
Right. Yeah, that's the, and I think that's what maybe some people don't necessarily understand is that, we can customize it to your specific needs. And that's what I do most often. I have these diagnosing conversations with them to say, what are your challenges? What are your issues? Here is the off the shelf option, but it's like a menu, right? It's kind of like that menu where you go to, you can pick one appetizer, you can pick an entree, you can pick a
Oh, now
salad.
you're talking about how my wife might order at dinner. I
Right.
don't want this. I need some of this on the side. Can you not do any of that on there? Yeah.
Yep, yep. So we can customize it based on their most, specific needs and challenges, and customize it best to fit their challenges at the moment. So yeah, that's typically it is a somewhat ambiguous question when they come in, and we can kind of suggest based on the conversation. Here's what I would recommend you do: these modules, and do it over this amount of time. So.
Yep. Excellent. Okay. What's point number 3?
Yep. I have, it's what feedback have you received from employees regarding leadership support or management style? So are you getting feedback from your frontline people that they're not getting any direction? They don't know what to do because they're not getting good communication from their bosses, or they're getting too much, they're feeling micromanaged. They've been given too much to do at once. So there's some sort of delegation challenges that are happening there. And so it helps provide some insight on the from the employee's perspective. There's the boss's perspective, but then there's an employee's perspective that can give you kind of a 360 view on the challenges going on the floor or in the department.
So in that case, I know for many of the employers that we engage very heavily with, that for us starts with an employee opinion and engagement survey. So we're getting true feedback versus anecdotally, I hear, a little of this, a little of that. It's my thoughts or opinions of X or Y or Z. But when you have a survey, whether you've done that survey with AIM or you've done it with someone else, you have some hard results. And that allows, I know, someone like you to say, hey, let me take a look at that.
Yeah.
And let me make sure that when we start to configure your program, that we're putting that together in a way that's going to help you achieve better results. And then that allows us to see the effectiveness of the training. And I know you're always trying to tie those two things together there.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
And unfortunately, sometimes you get that feedback during an exit interview, and that's not a good time to get it because that means you've just lost someone because of the challenges they're experiencing. So sometimes it's, I'm leaving because of him, or I'm leaving because of my boss. And that, I mean, you've got the feedback, but you've now lost someone because of an ineffective leader.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't speak enough to the importance of those. And I know if you had your way, what you would do is say, hey, before we do the training, let's do a survey.
Yep.
And let's understand exactly from our employees that point of view. We understand management's point of view. That's usually pretty easy to understand. And then what we can do at some point later in the future, after we train, coach, develop people forward, we can measure the impact that we've made.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. What's point number 4?
So number 4, are there emerging leaders or high potential employees who would benefit from developmental opportunities? And so that's understanding, where do you need to develop your future leaders? Where are they now? Are they in a lead position? Are they in an individual contributor role? And the best way to do that is by using things like assessments or feedback from a supervisor, and having those honest conversations with them to say, who's the best person on your team? What do you need to do to get them up to the next level? Some people they may have designs on, growing their career and sometimes someday in the future being a leader. So how do you get that feedback and understand what training do we need to develop for them? What programs do we need to put them through to get them into that role to be the future supervisor or leader within the organization?
When I think about this, it kind of, starting to sound a little bit like a broken record here, but when we think about like the emerging leaders and, the specific training, it's so obvious. We bring in a new employee and we provide that employee, if they're going to run a piece of equipment, they're going to drive a truck, they're going to do anything, fork trucks, they're going to work in a call center. It doesn't matter what their job is. We invest in training that person. But I would say the majority of the time when someone gets promoted then to supervisor, the amount of training that that person gets to have the skills they need to be effective in that job, it's drastically reduced. And I'm just thinking of my son. He just became a first-time manager with his employer. And I mean, he was given the job. He's super excited. And I'm having conversations with him on a regular basis now of how to handle really difficult situations. People are testing him because he's the new guy, right? He's a young man. He's the new guy in town, and they want to know, X, Y, and Z. And some are testing him and some are real scenarios, but how he manages those is going to be critical. And his employer has given him no training, none at all, to be ready to manage people and hold people accountable. And it's so unfair. I don't really understand why we do that, but I know the common reason you'll hear is we don't have the time to let people get away. How do you help solve that problem?
Yep. I think that is the best way to solve that problem is to work with them on what will work for their schedule. So a lot of our programs, like we have a 6-day program. Well, they'll say, well, we can never fit 6 days of training. Well, but we can divide that 6-day training into half days. We can divide them into 2-hour sessions. We can divide that 6 days of training over 6 months. So if you do one day, you can't afford one full day a month, or can you afford, 12 half days over 6 months? Those types of things, we can be flexible for shifts, coverages, because we know a lot of times, well, we can't have our 6 supervisors off the floor at the same time. Well, can we do it in half-day sessions, things like that?
Yep. No, I think that's a good point. All right, Matt, let's bring it home with line item number 5 on your
So number 5
questionnaire
is
here.
probably the easiest sell if you're looking for funding from your supervisor or from your finance people or your CFO. Are there specific business goals that your leaders are struggling to achieve? So that goes right down to the bottom line. What do we need to train to be better at a business? That's more tangible. It's more understandable from the requesting a finance and funding standpoint. This is going to go directly to us selling more, making more money. So what are those skills that will help them do their job better for us to make more money as a company?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in the end, that's what we're all trying to do, is achieve those goals and help strengthen our organization and have job security. And in the end, that helps our community at large. And I know that's what we are about. And this is why we have our mission, which is to support our community through those efforts. When I think about this and I look at the Gallup poll here, it's almost 60%, 59% of millennials say that they find it extremely important when they take a new job to discuss what are the training plans and opportunities for that. People want to be developed and prepared. It's not that they see training as a punishment. They want that. And that's something that is important to them when they take the job. And I know when we talk to our recruiters, it's the same thing. Who's going to train me? What's the development plan look like? Am I going to be prepared to do this job well, or is there going to be a learn as you go type approach? And I know when talking to recruiters and Randy Sims and the other recruiters that we work with, they're constantly saying that if there's not an approach to training, it's a much harder sell to get someone to say yes.
Yep.
So there's good value in it and be able to promote that across all angles. But Matt, anything else you have before we close out today?
Yeah, I think go back just to your point of not waiting too long or waiting till someone gets into a leadership role or far enough in their leadership role to develop them. Starting at that lead role, starting at the individual contributor, start developing those skills so you have a bench in order to promote from. And some people may be a little more, ready to run when it comes to give them that challenge of as being a leader.
And you have programs that are designed to help people be prepared for when they become the leader or the supervisor. Yes,
that is correct. Yeah, one of our most important, most popular classes is leadership for leads. So it's that role of a lead where you're leading by example and leading by influence. You don't have a team yet, but we want you to get there.
Absolutely. It's a great program. I know it is one of the more popular programs, and everyone has lead people that can use those skills. And it does help them decide, do they want to be a supervisor? Helps you decide, are they capable of being a supervisor? Or are they best positioned to be a lead or stay in the same role? Important when we do our succession and planning development. All right, Matt, thank you very much. I know you're busy helping our members today, so thanks for taking some time. Bert, thank you for joining us, and good luck at your program. we will be back here next week at 7:30. We do have the Proposition A program is still available if you want to sign up for that on the paid sick leave in Missouri. So for anyone that has employees in Missouri, that might be a good program for you to attend. You can find that on our website. That was designed specifically by you, Matt. Great job. And we will be back here at 7:30. Until then, let's go out and let's be good to somebody. Take care.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues, forward our invites, share the link, aimea.org/This Week at Work, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment. LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we're everywhere you are. Don't forget you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.